Good morning. The dignity of difference. Thank you so much for the many wonderful comments on last week's post on where our human energy can be found. Clearly a very important topic that will be a common thread running through these posts frequently. This week, I spent a lot of time reflecting on the reason why I started writing this newsletter in the first place. I'm afraid that we have lost, or are about to lose, our ability to have any public, or often private for that matter, conversation about meaningful differences without them leading to divisive, mean-spirited, uncivil, and ultimately dehumanizing outcomes. I am, as I'm sure many of you are, quite concerned about this. So much of our public discourse seems to be about grievances people have with what somebody else has said. I often try to visit whatever caused such a strong reaction. And when I do, I rarely find it that upsetting. Is it me? Am I more tolerant? No. Or am I more ignorant and don't understand the seriousness of somebody else's claims? We seem to have developed a zero tolerance for difference. If someone has a differing point of view, many jump immediately to the conclusion that this person is fundamentally different than them and wants something completely different from what we want. Therefore, they must be ignored at best or humiliated to defeat at worst. To me, there are really two dangerous consequences of this complete loss of tolerance of diversity in our public exchange. The first is that we know that dissent plays a crucial role in scientific progress. In fact, in any kind of progress, trees that grow in strong winds develop tougher roots, muscles grow stronger during times under tension, there is no spark without friction. The sayings are many. A good and productive conversation is supposed to welcome and enable dissent and dialogue that fosters a better understanding of varying perspectives. The role of the host is not to judge, evaluate, or argue for any one side. The media was supposed to play this role for all of us, but most large platforms have either already gone deep into one side or are corrupted by algorithms that profit from extremism and mindless clicking. We see daily examples of one side feeling injured by what somebody else has said, and their entire side is calling for boycotting, silencing, or censoring. So where do we draw the line when people join calls to abandon entire platforms because they disagree with what somebody else has said? By quieting dissent, I'm afraid we will all lose. None of us have all the answers. Human progress and flourishing is not like a tug of war where you win or lose. It's much more like an exchange where we learn small incremental lessons from all experiences we have. We simply can't silence what we conceive or ideas we disagree with. First, we will miss the lessons and insights embedded within them. And second, they will show up elsewhere, perhaps amplified and boosted from the rejection. And we just have increased the distance between us. The second and perhaps more tragic consequence here is that we are dehumanizing the lived experience. The extreme intolerance for different opinion is gradually eroding relationships and trust between human beings, even families. And I fear we are already paying the price as we see a rise of mental health problems, loneliness, suicides, and of course, the dysfunction of our democracy. Nothing can get done when there's a complete breakdown of trust. Trust is the ultimate human interface needed for cooperation, collaboration, and innovation. I have referenced the late and great Rabbi Jonathan Sacks here many times. I learned so much from his books and his example. It is from the book The Dignity of Difference that I borrowed the title of this post, In that book, he wrote, quote, "A primordial instinct going back to humanity's tribal past make us see difference as a threat. That instinct is massively dysfunctional in an age in which our several destinies are interlinked. Oddly enough, it is the market, the least overtly spiritual of concepts, that delivers a profoundly spiritual message. That it is through exchange that difference becomes a blessing, not a curse. When a difference leads to war, both sides lose. When it leads to mutual enrichments, both sides gain." End of quote. I know that our bridges in our country are falling apart, and appreciate that we need investment in infrastructure for repairing the old and building new physical connections between people, cities, and states. However, we also need to invest in our collective capacity to build opinion bridges, emotional bridges, psychological bridges between our different points of view. Otherwise, the current division and polarization risk tearing us apart and tearing at the very fabric that made America both possible, hopeful, and successful. I think this might be our most important project in the years to come. Here are some ideas and attitudes I'm trying to adopt that have helped me a bit. Please share yours if you found them useful. I only selectively watch traditional media, like news, and if I do, I make sure I watch both sides, like MSNBC and Fox. I do prefer documentaries that go deeper on particular topics. Same with papers. I scan European and US news, and I mainly focus on reading a diverse selection of opinion columnists from both sides. And to be clear, I rarely agree completely with anyone, including myself. And instead of traditional media, I subscribe to a curated, diverse selection of podcasts and newsletters like Barry Weiss and Andrew Sullivan and Sam Harris and Krista Tippett and Tyler Cowen, and I list a few in the newsletter if you want to hit the links. I'm proud to be a founding partner of Daniel Lubetsky's Starts With Us. I've referenced it before. Please sign and join the movement for a better conversation. I also recently got in touch with the terrific organization Resetting the Table, which is helping to facilitate a better conversation. And I have links to, you can learn more about them. I bought some cards that Michael Tennant has created that are beautiful, that helps us with empathy and conversation that you can have for your next gathering. But most importantly, take deep breaths through your nose. Notice when you get worked up by somebody else's opinion and ask yourself, just because he or she has a different perspective than me, does it mean I need to dislike them? And certainly not hate anyone. Try to understand it instead. Get informed, not infirmed. Lastly, I recommend you watch this interview with Frank Luntz. I got to know Frank many years ago. Through experience and ultimately a stroke, Frank is now talking very honestly and vulnerably about what he has learned and how much he fears the complete lack of decency in our public conversation. So here we are. It's a dangerous and complex situation, but most often when I face difficult challenges, I try to look within for answers. Do I have the space in my heart to welcome different opinions? Yes, I do. Have I experienced the discomfort of a challenging disagreement, only to realize afterwards that I learned something invaluable that forever changed my perspective? Yes, I have. Many times, in fact. And that is why we say, no pain, no gain. I will end with a lesson I learned from Benjamin Sander whenever I faced a very challenging idea from someone. Just say out loud, "That's a fascinating idea. Tell me more." At least it has saved me a few times when I was about to get into defensive overdrive. Still working on it, so please call me out if you're experiencing me being intolerant. So have a great week. Thank you.